Oh, I wish I could be as cool as Johnny Cage. But then again, I am too nerdy and dorky to ever be as cool as that guy is. I mean, granted, his career has kind of taken a turn for the worse, but hey, he gets to be selected for Mortal Kombat. Not a bad trade-off. I mean, minus the death and all, but hey, at least he gets to still be a badass at the end of the day, through and through. That's what he is.
Johnny would definitely die.
Mortal Kombat 2 is once again directed by McQuoid and written by Jeremy Slater. The film stars Karl Urban, Adeline, Rudolph, Jessica McNamee, Josh Lawson, Ludi Lane, Mechad Brooks, Tati, Gabrielle, Louis Tan, Damon, Herriman, Shin Han, Tadanobu, Asano, Joe Taslim, and Hiroyuki Sanada. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, the fan-favorite champions, now joined by Johnny Cage himself, are pitted against one another in the ultimate battle to defeat the dark rule of Shao Kahn that threatens the very existence of the Earth Realm and its defenders. Folks, real quick, before we get into this review, I gotta do it. I mean, come on, it is. Never gets old. Mortal Kombat 2021 was a success. While not doing crazy numbers at the box office due to the pandemic that was, of course, at the height of what it was back in 2021, it was HBO Max's most successful film to launch on the service. Of course, this was when Warner Brothers was doing the day in, day out release day where it was going into theaters being released, and then, of course, it was, at the time of the pandemic, it was also being streamed on HBO Max, and everyone got a chance to see it. Of course, there are various opinions on how you feel about that film, but to Warner Brothers, they were very thrilled and very happy with the result of that movie, garnering a lot of views for them on the site. Following its release, plans for a sequel were discussed, and then, of course, it being official the following year. When you have a fan base like Mortal Kombat, and then, of course, how that franchise would go on to have other characters appear in other games, I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you're gonna make a movie that's centering on a video game franchise that has a lot of characters in your library, I mean, they can do whatever they want at this point. With some new additions to the cast, though, including Karl Urban as Johnny Cage, I remember when he was announced, there was kind of a very mixed reaction to the fact that not only was he playing easily one of the most identifiable characters in the franchise, but he was an older actor. And with that, a lot of people tend to really scratch their heads and think to themselves, what are they doing in terms of taking this very young, athletic, and abracious character of Johnny Cage and making him now a washed up has been, because that's what they're essentially doing with this. And having Karl Urban, who is now, I believe, in his 50s, playing this character. I mean, come on, what are we doing here? I want a prime Johnny Cage. I don't want washed up has been Johnny Cage. What are we thinking with this? And a new writer, with Jeremy Slater now taking over. The rest of the cast and director, Simon McQuoid, returned to up the carnage of the bloodshed that is all throughout Mortal Kombat. After the SAG-AFTRA strike and being delayed from its October 2025 release, it is now officially here. Yes, it originally was going to be released last year in October. Now, looking back on it in hindsight, I think they may have dodged a bullet because, yeah, October of 2025 was a very bad month for movies. Now, the question with this particular film is the sequel an improvement over its predecessor? I mean, come on, we're dealing with sequels here. My answer, yes. I think this is definitely a slight improvement over its first film. And I had a blast with it that it finally starts to understand what makes the series so fun. Mortal Kombat, I feel like gets this idea that because it's a tournament and there's a lot of lore and some dark stuff in it, that it's supposed to be taken seriously. Not really. Okay, I played like a bit of Mortal Kombat and heard some of the dialogue. Not even close. Okay, like there are some moments where they'll be serious, but for the most part, it's all kind of goofy. It's really silly if you really think about it. If you honestly take the time to know a little bit more Mortal Kombat, it really is. Before discussing my problems, my issues, because I do have some gripes here and there. Here are now my positives. The performances are fun, the cast, but in particular, Urban, Rudolph, and Lawson bring the energy and tone for what this franchise is known for. Everyone really had a blast when making this film. So I gotta start off with the main man himself, Karl Urban, okay, Johnny Cage. I get that so many fans probably wanted what most fans had really come to expect with Johnny Cage. They wanted just the young, hot headed, brash, but really cool martial artist actor from Hollywood. I understand. I do. But I kind of like what they took with this approach. I thought it was pretty cool to have an actor who, really gonna think about it, like the character's really so 90s that I just don't know how you would really do that well with regards to trying to adapt it for modern day. I kind of like the feeling of an actor who's now past his prime, kind of discovering himself or at least finding a new lease on life when his career and his past of being a black belt champion in martial arts, that's something that you could take with that. You can give the character something of humanity to. And I think Karl Urban does that. He is definitely taking over the character of Cole Young's story from the first to now this being kind of on him a bit in terms of the avatar that audiences can latch onto. And I think he definitely works more than what Cole Young did, okay? There's a little bit more humanity to Urban and a humorous side that you just really enjoy. But it really does seem like Karl Urban really tried his best to really invoke what Johnny Cage is known for. A guy that kind of be realistic in how he would react to all of this going on. And to me, I think he is definitely giving it his all. I think Karl Urban is great, although I can tell that New Zealand accent is really struggling to come out. I feel like he is so used to playing Billy Butcher in The Boys that he's like, oh wait, I'm playing an American. I'm kind of going with what I got here. Adeline Rudolph, who plays Katana, who is also from the games, she's also good too. I think she adds a little bit of kind of seriousness to a bit of what the movie can go for. Again, I know I said that series itself, the idea and how it's all played out in the games, it is goofy as hell. But I'll give credit. They do try to give Katana a little bit more of a serious edge to what this movie needs a bit of, but not to the point of like it takes over the entire movie. I think she just adds a bit enough to where it does, at the very least, keep things level headed or at the very least like steady in how to balance out the tone of this movie. Because when you have a character like Johnny Cage, who is very humorous, Katana is the one that, at the very least, having this sort of balanced way of saying, hey, we'll still keep what I think the series vibe should be, but not let it overtake it. And I think Adeline Rudolph does play Katana very well. Just like last time, Josh Lawson, I love him as Kano. He is definitely always the standout so far in these two movies, and I hope he still plays this character because, man, they are giving the best stuff to this guy, and he just rocks with it. Every chance he gets, he is always insulting and just making fun of anybody that gets in his way. And yeah, I really like the fact they found a way to bring him back. Is it dumb? Yes, but you know what? I'm all for it because, yeah, Josh Lawson, he's just a hoot to watch, and I could not get enough of the jokes that he was just throwing down every time. It was very hilarious. The direction is exciting. Once again, director Simon McQuoid brings the series back with more excitement and really understands how to implement elements of the games together, finding the balance for both fans and audiences. That's the thing I think what works here, because Simon McQuoid so far has understood what makes Mortal Kombat this fun and bloody way of showcasing what Mortal Kombat is all about, but not feeling like is too hardcore fanboying, but more so like, hey, I have played the games, I've enjoyed them, I've tried to understand a bit of the lore, but I'm also trying to appeal to not just the fans, but newcomers who are trying to maybe get into Mortal Kombat, that this could be an easier gateway for them to probably get into it. I think there is that good balance of it is there for the fans, but I also do think that he is trying to get the audiences really invested in what makes Mortal Kombat at least fun, in the sense of the fights and how it is all displayed here. I think that is what works best with this movie, and it's really because of how he is able to pull in from different games and trying to implement it that feels respecting both parties' that are seeing this film. The action is enjoyable. Seeing the fights play out with all the actors being involved in them with every punch and kick was a delight to watch, nailing down the most important aspect of what this film is. Okay, look, when you're doing Mortal Kombat, what's the one thing you gotta get right? And if you're gonna tell me it's the fights, you are correct. Mortal Kombat is known for its brutality and the way in which characters fight. This movie does that, and they are able to kind of continue with what the first movie had with those fights and just still carry that on. And it's worked out very well because, yeah, I can see how a lot of the actors really put in the hard work and time to really get the moves down, as well as just really putting themselves in this movie where they are showcasing that they can fight and that they can really be on display of playing these characters and how it would be imagined in real life. I think that is what helps this movie a lot, definitely, because yeah, the fights in here, they're a lot of fun. Are they sometimes predictable? Are they sometimes very calculating? Sure, but you know what? Hey, I'm not gonna degrade it for what it is. I mean, that is what Mortal Kombat is known for. I'm not asking for much. If you can at least give me some fights that at least are pretty good and solid, there is, because there are some fights in here that are awesome, especially the Liu Kang versus Kung Lao fight. I thought that was probably the best fight out of this movie, but yeah, I think they did put a lot of hard work into making sure that the fights are still as good as how they originally were in the first film. The pacing and runtime is right. Once the film starts, it never slows down. With a runtime of 1 hour and 56 minutes, it doesn't go on longer than it should. I'm glad that this is under 2 hours. I wouldn't want this to be any longer than that, because if you ask me, if they had tried to stretch this out, it could have gotten old way too fast. And thankfully, they managed to keep this within the under to about 2 hours, which is right for what a movie like this should be. It should never feel like it's extending and going much bigger and grander because of the fact that it's Mortal Kombat. It's like, no, they know what they are. And if they had tried to do that, it would have been so noticeable and just really dumb for them to even try to think that they are much bigger than what Mortal Kombat is known for. And they get that for a movie like this, it doesn't need to be as long as it should be. The music is stellar. Once again, composer Benjamin Wallfish continues to amp up the fights to being intense. Also, the MK theme song will never become old. No matter what, and you could say, well, I wish they used that theme song a lot. Sure, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad that when they do use that theme song, it works well. It always hits. There's never a point where I think that that song never fits right into this movie. It just manages to come in and just be as badass as it always has. But yeah, Benjamin Wallfish, he does well with how the music had been heard in the first movie. He continues that here. I think he adds and ramps up the tension and the ways in which characters fight and how exhilarating it can feel watching these characters just duking each other out. It's really cool to see how much of that sort of energy and vibe that comes with Mortal Kombat is still brought and felt throughout the rest of this film when it comes to how the music really displays itself. The writing is goofy. Writer Jeremy Slater leans into the corny and silly nature of the game series. It may not be the best script, but for MK, it's an improvement over its previous film. My biggest issue with the last movie is that they tried to take this shit way too fucking seriously. Why? This is Mortal Kombat. Are you really honestly thinking that this needs to be something dramatic or something really prestigious? Man, if you know what you are, that's what you should do. That is what you should be. And Jeremy Slater said, you're right. We should be goofy. We should be campy. And we should really not take ourselves super seriously. And I like that. I think that that's what works for this film because it is a product of its time. And for a movie that is based on a video game series that dates back to the 90s, it feels like that. It feels so much like a 90s film for the modern day. And you know what? I like it for that reason. And the way characters talk in this movie is so dumb, is so stupid, but that's kind of the charm of it, is that it knows what it is. It still has the grit of Mortal Kombat, but it does have that sort of humor and character dynamic that you kind of want in how characters kind of interact with this situation. The production is solid. Just like before, seeing the costumes, sets, and props shows the hard work in bringing aspects from the games to life, always making sure to keep it in line. If there's one thing you always got to give credit, sometimes if not most of the time, with recent video game adaptations, they really do try to implement some of the stuff from the games, whether it be the costumes, how characters look, how the props are shown in this film, or even just the sets. even if it's not 100% tangibly built, parts of it are, and they're really cool. I think they really do add to the aspect of what Mortal Kombat is known for, and gritty, bloody style that the series is just so used to, and it just really wears it very well. For its improvements, there are some spots that do leave things a bit messy, and these are areas that, yeah, there's still problems, there's still issues, but I mean, listen, I'm not looking for a perfect movie out of Mortal Kombat, but I mean, these are things that I did see as a problem in this movie, so here are now my negatives. The story is paper thin. Seeing Johnny Cage fighting for Earthrealm in the tournament had its moments, but feels like an afterthought. Thankfully, everything surrounding it does keep it afloat. I understand Mortal Kombat stories are not super duper 100% memorable unless you are a fan of the franchise, then of course they are going to be memorable. But I mean, honestly, I just was really hoping for a story that's at least fun enough to where, hey, it's not perfect, but you know what? It's at least an enjoyable story to a certain extent. But the problem is with this film is that while it focuses on the tournament, it's kind of really pushed aside to kind of focus on the MacGuffin in this movie that everyone is kind of getting themselves involved with and trying to make sure it doesn't fall into the hands of Shao Kahn. And I mean, I get it. I'm sure in the games there are storylines that do involve the characters while they're doing the tournament, but I don't know. I was just hoping for something at least enjoyable enough to where it can at least be a good enough premise or at least good idea, because ultimately it does kind of feel like the movie really was focused on trying to get everything in here and then realizing, oh, we really need a story for this. How are we going to connect everything and make sure it's all leading to somewhere? We'll just think of something. Don't even try to rationalize how this story plays out, because honestly, it is just lifeless and thinless that it honestly, you probably won't notice what the story even was at this point. So, but I mean, I kind of wish there was some semblance of a story. The villain is bland. While Shao Kahn gets involved in the fights, and he does, I'll give him credit, he at least gets involved in fighting against other opponents. There's nothing really interesting or at least fun about him in the slightest. He's just your typical tyrannical bad guy. That's all he really is. And look, I'm sure that that is how Shao Kahn is in the games, or at least the ones that he appears in. But I also am looking for at least something memorable or at least enjoyable. Like, he can fight, cool, but I mean, that's just it. He's really all talk and no sort of memorability aspects to him. He's just kind of like, all right, well, not much, but hey, I guess it'll work in some degree. But even still, I kind of just wish Shao Kahn was just a little bit more memorable than what they just gave us instead. The visuals are inconsistent. While some areas don't look too bad, and honestly there aren't. There are some few aspects in this movie where the visual effects actually look pretty well, and other parts that just look really, really bad. Just wishing that they could have just polished more than just really rushing them. There are scenes in this movie where it is so obvious they are standing in front of a green screen, and look, I get it for what this series is known for. Maybe they could have leaned into that whole 90s look to it, but it's just weird because while you could do that, but there are some other aspects of this movie where the visual effects actually don't look too bad. And you kind of are left wondering, either they try to make it a little bit better, or they just really go for that campy, corny vibe of what 90s movies looked like, that you just are like, all right, do we want to go with the crappier look, or do we want to make this actually the least? Because to me, there's this sort of incohesion of understanding if they really want to put the time and effort into making sure that all the environments actually do look good. Because like, there are aspects in this movie where characters are clearly outlined and you can just see the visual effects, and it is like circa 1995, like around 1997. That is how bad we are talking in terms of the look of this movie, because it's just weird, because again, not bad aspects in this movie, and there are some character designs that are enhanced by visual effects that don't look too bad. And then there are others where you're like, man, that looks like shit. I wish this could have been improved. But I don't know. It just feels like there's this sort of feeling of not really knowing what they wanted to do with how the movie would look with a lot of the visual effects that are on display here. Mortal Kombat 2 is enough for both fans and audiences to enjoy, giving viewers everything it has to offer from its source material. While it occasionally trips up in a few areas, it's nice to see the series just find its stride, because I really do think that this is the best way to go with this tone and style, because that's the problem with the last movie, is that they took it way too seriously. Here, much better. They found that sweet spot to where they are not trying to take this super duper seriously, but still having the moments where they are trying to at least be as serious as they wanted to get. But for the most part, it's just a lot of dumb fun. And honestly, it knows what it is. And I gotta give them respect. If you know what you are, that's what I like. If you're trying to really go for something, they found the balance. And I think going forward, I really do think that this is how the series should be. I'm going to give Mortal Kombat 2 a 7 out of 10. It's a good enough, fun action film that you can at least get a few enjoyments out of. Look, you're not going to walk in for a story. I mean, let's face it, I'm sure Mortal Kombat is not really known for a really engaging story anyways, unless you are a diehard fan. But hey, it'll at least provide you with some enjoyment factors in its action, and at the very least, like, the actors seeming like they are having fun with this rather than really trying to take this seriously, because they could have easily had tried to make this super dramatic movie that I just don't think really fits with what the series is really known for. And I'm glad that they were able to make some of the changes from the first movie to this new movie, especially with the changing of protagonists, because yeah, Johnny Cage is much more fun to watch than Cole Young, to be honest. I could have been just bored by him. So I will be soon doing a review for The Mandalorian and Grogu. So yes, look forward to that review and other reviews coming soon.